Shala reporting from just outside Quicken Loans Arena as the final day of the Republican National Convention just wrapped up. I have Danny Morales here with me. He was inside for the entire presentation tonight. Danny, just tell us how the vibe was in there. What stuck out to you the most?
Well, the vibe in there was definitely it was energetic. It almost felt like a sporting event. It was the most packed night of the 4 nights here. There was people lined up all the way to the upper deck, seats up against the wall, people standing. It wasn't quite standing room only. There were a few empty seats, but it was definitely a rah type of crowd here. And a lot of people, Donald Trump spoke for over an hour. He hit on a lot of issues, and more or less every single one of those issues resonated with the crowd in here today, including immigration, terrorism, and finance and trade.
One of the things that stuck out, especially us being in Orlando, he did speak about the Pulse tragedy. He gave a shout out to the LGBTQ community, something that maybe is not necessarily a normal thing at the RNC. Also, Peter Thiel spoke as well. They mentioned that he's only the second openly gay man to speak at the RNC. Just talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'll start with Peter Thiel because he spoke first, but Peter Thiel came out and he said, I'm proud to be gay and Republican, and much to some people's surprise, he got a standing ovation inside the building. And as you mentioned, that's not necessarily a GOP stance. Some people, like maybe Ted Cruz, wouldn't quite be that willing to do that and applaud that. Now, Donald Trump then also mentioned the Pulse nightclub shooting that we had in our hometown of Orlando and made sure to not ignore saying LGBTQ. And he got a standing ovation for that as well, which might surprise some people at home, some Democrats, or just some other people that usually aren't supporting Trump, to see that he stood with some of those people that necessarily the party doesn't always do that.
Kind of segueing into terrorism was a big topic for Donald Trump tonight. He referred to himself as the law and order candidate. Maybe touch on that a little bit, Danny?
Well, yeah, he called himself the law and order candidate. He said that his opponent, Hillary Clinton, is soft on that kind of stuff, and he was really trying to resonate with the people. He talked about some of the, I believe it was the first night that he had the victims of immigration, and he mentioned those people by name again. So he's definitely trying to pull at the heartstrings of people when he talks about terrorism. He tries to talk about people affected by terrorism here in the United States, not necessarily. He also talked about Nice and other terrorist attacks that have happened across Europe, but he also made it a point to talk about terrorism attacks here in the United States, from anywhere from Kansas, Missouri, Baton Rouge, Orlando, San Bernardino. He mentioned it all. He definitely wanted that be a key in his platform and a key in his big speech today.
Two things that kind of stuck out to me was obviously the family themes continued again. Daughter Ivanka introduced him. Talk about Ivanka a little bit. How was the vibe for her? How was the response for her?
Ivanka's speech was kind of on point with the rest of the family speeches for the most part, especially kind of with what Tiffany said a few nights ago. Ivanka really talked about how her father just, not so much as a character witness, but as a person, as a human being and as a businessman, she talked to him about. And she mentioned times that Ivanka, as a little kid, and Donald was already setting her up for success at the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, telling her, well, if you're already going to think, you might as well think big. And that's kind of been what all the kids have talked about. Maybe Donald Jr. talked a little bit more about business strictly, but all the kids always talked about that Donald helped them realize what they can achieve. And I think that's the message he's trying to get out to the people of the United States, that he's the presidential candidate that can make sure that these people can achieve what they are capable of achieving, not necessarily what they think they can achieve.
Going back to Donald the showman a little bit, you could clearly see him even talking to the crowd, getting the USA chants going himself, clearly feeding into the people, feeding into the crowd. Do you think that it was all in all a successful speech, Danny?
Without a doubt. I mean, he went a little bit over an hour. The immigration talk didn't start till after 11. That could have been planned, that could have not been planned. I know some people might tune out by that time. But I mean, the speech hit, literally, I'm sitting there writing down these points. He hit every single point he's talked about since the beginning of the primaries. And he didn't just shortchange most of them. He tried to have an emphasis on all of them. And obviously, most of the people inside this building resonate with that kind of type of stuff. Whether it had been the terrorism, whether it had been immigration, whether it had been free trade. He mentioned how the Clinton administration repealed Glass-Steagall, which some people think paid into the crisis, the financial crisis that we had in the mid-2000s. So he mentioned that, and he definitely didn't necessarily mention Hillary Clinton by name very much, mentioned her as her opponent, but he did say the Clinton administration did that in the 1990s. So he definitely wanted to get on the side of a lot of different people in that building, and I think he accomplished that.
Well, it'll definitely be very interesting now to see how the Democratic convention goes, starting on Monday in Philadelphia. Wrapping it up here from Cleveland, Ohio, at the Republican National Convention. Danny Morales, and this is Frank Shala from Quicken Loans Arena. I think that was the best one.